Back to order. This is the public session, and we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could stand, and Mr. Parker, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And, okay, emergency procedures. Follow the exit signs. Everybody in this room knows the procedure, and you know not to smoke anywhere on campus. The next thing will be board consent items, 1 through 5, or 1 through 4. Is there a motion to accept items C1 through C4? Ms. Arruda, a second by Ms. Ancona. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving? It's unanimously approved. Thank you. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of items that I would like to share. First is regarding opening day. Other than a few minor issues, opening day went rather smoothly, and I do want to thank the board for joining me yesterday. And I will have additional comments regarding opening day and items for discussion. I specifically made it a portion so everyone could talk about that. My next item is regarding K-3 Chromebook distribution. As the board knows, our Chromebook order, which was promised for August, has been delayed to at least October. We do have enough Chromebooks for our students in grades 4 through 12, but not K through 12. So as a result, we have asked our K-3 families that do not need a device at home not to request one. This way we can make sure all children that do absolutely need it will have it for remote learning days. We do believe we have enough to distribute for those in need, and probably some more, but we just still need to make a determination of who those kids are before we make those distributions. Tomorrow I will be meeting with the K-3 principals to discuss that further, so hopefully we will have resolve to that. So we ask for parents' patience with regard to the issue as we work to resolve it. The next item is something we actually got from the state a couple of days ago, I believe. And as part of the State Department's effort to provide districts with flexibility in meeting local needs during this pandemic, the department is establishing a one-year pilot that will allow school districts to pivot to remote instruction to provide continuity of instruction on what would otherwise be a snow day and a school closure. The pilot is in effect for this school year only, and the department will review the outcome of the pilot to determine whether or not they will continue that flexibility. We're fortunate our plan is able to pivot, so in the event of the need to close for inclement weather for travel, we could work remotely and not affect our school calendar. So it's pretty interesting. And again, that's this school year. Who knows? I haven't looked at the Farmer's Almanac, so I don't know what's in store for us in terms of snow this year. And my last item is COVID statistics reporting. Some of you may have heard the governor talk about this. So beginning 3 o'clock today, the district began our daily COVID statistics reporting to the New York State Department of Health. The governor indicated this in one of his briefings. We received an email from the DOH regarding the requirement at 7 o'clock last night. My understanding is the state is going to make available to the public such data as the number of persons known by the school to be COVID positive, number of tests taken, types of tests, etc. with little guidance, not exactly sure how the reporting system will work. We did receive a link. I believe we put the link on our website already, on quick links. So I believe you'll be able to click on that and say your location or your area, and statistics will pop right up for you with regard to our community, our learning community. And that is all the announcement I have, President Hayes.
Could I ask you a question
Sure.
about the statistical reporting?
Mm-hmm.
How can we report the existence of a COVID positive test as anything other than hearsay?
Well, we would report a COVID positive test that we learned through someone telling us of the positive test, or through the DOH telling us that. So some of the tests that are giving are going straight to the DOH and they get right involved with it, and some of the tests do not. So sometimes someone will report it directly to us. I think this is an effort to make sure everything's on one page with regard to them. Obviously, if it's not reported to us, we wouldn't be able to report it. But I think it's highly likely that a faculty or staff member or a parent of a student would report it to us.
Mr. Pacini, you had your hand
Are
up.
is Department of Health required to report to us anybody connected to our district, student or staff, if they're positive?
What do you mean by connected?
Like, are they, well, the student or staff member is reported to DOH.
They're
DOH
telling
has
us.
to tell us.
Yes.
And they give us the person's name, or they just tell us a positive?
No, I don't know, John, I don't know if you're familiar, but I believe they give us the exact name, because what they'll do is they reach out to us to do the contact tracing. They want to know.
Contact tracing with the district.
Yeah, they want to know where they were with us,
Okay.
so they can reach out further with their contact tracing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next, trustee and advisory committee reports. I don't know that are there any advisory committees that have met in the last 2 weeks? I don't think so.
And I would ask the board to wait till the opening to do the opening comments.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll be stepping all over each other.
Right. So now to guide to board meetings, and this would be the public commentary. Are there any questions or issues that came in through the clerk's office?
We have two statements that I'm going to ask the clerk to read, because they were in the form of a statement.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is from a Christina Grasso. My name is Christina Grasso. I know most of the board have already seen an email from me, but I wanted to send a statement to be shared publicly at tonight's meeting. I would have been there in person, but due to restrictions and limitations on the number of people allowed at meetings, I felt this was the best way to speak. On September 8th, my 3 children were extremely excited to go back to school. Normally, my children would take the bus to and from school, but my husband and I decided we would drive them this year to limit the amount of time they have to keep a mask on every day. My eldest is in the middle school, and drop-off was very smooth. She walked right inside the building, said she had her ID out, and leaned forward to have her temperature scanned with a thermal reading thermometer. Now, Brookhaven Elementary drop-off did not go as smoothly as many of you have seen in my previous email. Children were asked to wait in a long line that wrapped alongside the front of the building, and in our case, in the sunlight. The school nurse came over and took my son's temperature, then my daughter's, and then took my son's again. She turned the thermometer and showed my husband and myself that my son's scan said 100 degrees. She said he would not be allowed in the building. I said it was impossible, as we checked all our children's temperatures prior to coming to the schools. The school nurse stated she would have to get Dr. Raymond. My husband walked over to Mrs. Bell. I'm not sure what her specific job title is in the building, but my children both said her name is Mrs. Bell, and asked her to scan our son's head. She said his temperature was 96. This was not even 20 seconds apart from the first reading. We get back into our place in line, and at this point, Dr. Raymond comes over. My husband explained the 2 different readings. Dr. Raymond said we should move to his side and have his temperature rechecked again. The school nurse came over and said no, that once there is a reading of 100, the protocol is to send the child home, and it does not matter what a recheck says. He would not be allowed in the building until our son was seen by his pediatrician. I thought that the building principal is in charge, but I guess I am mistaken here. Seeing that between Dr. Raymond and the school nurse, they were unsure what they were supposed to do. First, why is there a 4-degree discrepancy between two thermometers? My husband said if you were refusing to go by the 96-degree reading, then you should be rechecking every single person on the line. We also did not feel comfortable leaving our daughter there, knowing that such a discrepancy was acceptable. Had my son's temperature been taken by Mrs. Bell in the first place, he would have been allowed in school yesterday. Second, we then were told my son could not come back to the building until he was cleared and examined by his pediatrician. We drove back home with 2 crying children who thought they did something wrong and were treated like a bunch of criminals. It was truly embarrassing and unprofessional the way we were sent off. Imagine being excited and nervous on your first day of school and having this happen. As an adult, it would hurt, but imagine being 6 and 8 years old. As soon as I walked through my front door, I grabbed our home thermometer again and scanned my son's head. His temperature was 98.9 degrees. Now I had to get a letter from the pediatrician that said, what exactly? Dean has no fever and is not sick, not to mention a co-payment for a nonsense visit. The pediatrician could not believe the way the situation was handled. She said those thermometers are garbage and not accurate. Dean's temperature should have been rechecked in the shaded area, not while he had sweatbands on his forehead standing in the sun. In a study on the efficiency of non-contact infrared thermometers, the manufacturers recommend that temperature should be measured over body surfaces which are not perspiring or covered by hair in a draft-free room at a constant temperature between 16 degrees Celsius and 40 degrees Celsius. If this temperature read over 100 with more than one thermometer, then of course I would understand asking us to leave. I do understand this was the first day and I went in expecting some flaws. However, I hope that going forward we will not run into this issue again. I'm asking the board to come up with a better plan for student arrival, walkers, and to clearly outline protocol for all staff and faculty when they are getting different readings with different thermometers. I would suggest coming up with a plan soon as what will happen when the weather begins to change to be colder or it is raining or snowing outside. Lining a group of kids outside does not make any sense, and as you have read with my experience, provides inaccurate temperature readings. Thank you for your time, Ms. Smith. Christina Grasso.
So thank you, Mrs. Grosso, for your comments, and to Ms. Flynn for reading them for us. And you have a second?
Yes.
Okay.
This
I just want to make a comment, because I know the board did get emails from Ms. Grasso. She did contact my office. I got a separate email. And it is accurate that, Brookhaven's entry was a little, lack of a better word. It could have been more organized. The kids were waiting outside. I was there with Mr. Parker and Ms. Hayes, and I didn't even know the incident occurred until afterwards. Then Dr. Raymond came up to me. But clearly, according to the plan, what should have happened was even with the kids waiting in lines, the second reading should have allowed the kid come in. But I think a lot of it had to do with some human error because on the first scan they were using handhelds and not the scanners that we purchased and designed where the kids walk up and check it. So that's going to change for Thursday. They haven't. I think they've always had enough. They may not have had enough cords, but that didn't get to us at the time. So that scan should go in. Also, to make it clearer, and when we get to item 2 on the agenda, I wasn't planning on doing it, but I did try to clear it up a little bit. So even when you take a second scan of a 100, so you start thinking about it and you say, which one's accurate, right? So what we're going to do, or what my recommendation is to do, and I guess I'm doing it now, but I might as well finish, is to have two rescans. So if a kid clocks in at over 100 and above, then a second and third test or scan will be taken by 2 different individuals in 2 different handhelds. So this way there's certainty. You're more sure that the kid is okay to go in. So if the student scanned with the next 2 under 100, they would be permitted to go in. If only one of those scanned and the other one was 100, then the kid would go home. And I tried to make it a little clearer in the update, in the plans update today as well. But we are aware of it, and we did take steps to address it immediately. It is unfortunate. I do feel for the parents and the child as well.
I agree, and I appreciate them bringing that to our attention. We can just clarify that too, that if you're gonna do 2 scans, that it can be set as 2 timeframes, because if you're gonna do 2 in a row, and they're standing outside in the hot weather, so I know that we did talk about this, with that second scan prior to even the reopening, but I really do think there needs to be a time frame, because if you go 2, and they've been standing outside, Frank P. Long that morning, the line was a little bit, and the sun was really beating on those kids, so I was a little nervous that some of their temperatures were gonna be a little bit higher, so I think there needs to be a time frame.
Yeah, and we didn't anticipate the numbers at Frank P. A lot more kids
And it was,
walked than
and
we said they would.
they did great at Frank P. Long, they did wonderful at Frank P. Long.
And at Brookhaven, the kids were lined up for a while, and they shouldn't have been. They should have been screened and got into the building. And I think if that were to happen, then you wouldn't have that standing in line. I mean, what if it was raining?
Well, that's what I wanted to say. What are we gonna do with these kids when it's pouring? I mean, Mr. Clark at Kramer did it great because he let off 1 bus at a time, so the line wasn't too long. First, he let all the kindergartners go. They had 1 entrance. He wants to try to get, I don't know if Mr. Briggs brought it to your attention, he wants to try to get a 3rd one because it went so fast. I mean, Mr. Briggs was with me and that was impressive, I thought. I mean, he did it so efficiently, and once like the next bus got like halfway and those kids were already half in the building, then the next bus came out. So maybe that's something that all the elementary schools want to consider, because if it's raining, these poor kids. I mean, and to ask a little kid, even to ask a high schooler to bring an umbrella is like asking them for the world. But it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, well, that's laid plans, right? It was the first day.
Yeah,
we
no, it was
learned-
great.
We learn from our mistakes and we improve and move on, and I think we will in this instance.
Okay.
Okay.
The rain.
You have a second one?
The second one, please.
Yes, the next one is from Daisy Rodriguez. It was suggested I send my question comment to the board, to be asked at the Board of Ed meeting. My dad is a bus driver for a different district, and although they don't take temps, they, in my dad's district, do open all the windows and even have the upper hatch open for ventilation. My middle school was picked up, the windows all closed to the point where she said she was so hot she pulled down her mask a little to breathe. Do we think this is a fair request to at least have the window open? I'm sure some of those kids were high on the temps too. I don't have the luxury of driving my kids to school and waiting for them to be checked in Southampton by 8 a.m. Even in the winter months, this particular district was told windows down, heat up. Thank you, and that's Daisy Bowden Rodriguez.
Okay.
So
And
that'll be another-
I think it's a fair request that the windows are cracked. We'll follow up with the both of you.
Okay, good. So thank Ms. Rodriguez for your comments, and for Ms. Flynn for reading them. And thank you for letting us know that that will be taken care of. Okay. So now we're down to items for discussion.
Right now to items, yes.
It's back to you.
Okay, thank you. So our first item for discussion is the reopening of schools. First, I would again like to thank the board for joining me to welcome the children and our faculty and staff back for the first day of in-school instruction. I was very happy to see all the children return and be happy. And believe it or not, even with the mask on, you could see the kids were happy. They were smiling underneath, along with our faculty and staff. I met with administration earlier today, who all reported that reopening of their schools was smooth and went very well. Transportation ran well with some minor issues. Half the students and those opting to provide their own transportation certainly provided for the social distancing we had hoped for. I know I was, and I shared this with the administrator, said I was really worried about transportation because we've had some tough starts and this was no usual, normal start. But it went very well. We had a couple of latenesses, but nothing that can't be resolved pretty easily. I also had the opportunity to walk the halls at a few of our schools yesterday, and I'm happy to report that students were engaged in learning. Students were seated appropriately in class and in the cafeterias. Students and staff were compliant with mask wearing, and faculty was engaged with remote learners. So I was really happy about that. I know we talked about it. We were concerned about, shifting this new transition to remote and hybrid learning. Some faculty are more skilled at it than others, but all gave it a shot. And I think as we move forward, things will only get better and there'll be more engagement. A couple of principals actually shared that they popped in to some of the Google Meets during the connection, the SEL connection. So it was good. So for the first day, I'm more than happy and looking forward to the growth and improvement as we come to settle to this new normal of teaching and learning. Again, many of the trustees joined me. I'm sure that somebody or someone would like to make comments as well.
I'll let Mr. Chung go first.
You,
No, Mr. Chung had his hands up. I wanted to say somebody had his hands up.
all right.
The reopening that I seen was great. I went to the high school and I went to the middle school. But I just want to make a comment that when I was at the middle school, I was at the high school, I noticed that 3 students registered 93.1 degrees when they took their temperature. It was 3 students in a row, and all 3 were let in. And I was a little concerned about those readings because those are all 3 low readings, and it wasn't given a second look. So Dr. Jones has recommended, a double check if your temperature is over 100 degrees. I would like there to be something similar to that if it's lower or oddly low. 93.1 is very low for a temperature.
Just to go on the back of that, I was seeing 90 at the high school, and they were allowed in. So that's not even, that needs an ambulance. So these are not either being done right, or they're getting rushed, and just to get them in the school. So, if it's not a 96 or better, this should be retaken,
Well, I hope that the temperature machines would be more accurate.
Right.
That you wouldn't go into centimeter distance of the machine. But that's
So
what we
the
have,
accuracy all depends upon where you are, right? So when you're outside of 3 inches, then you're not going to get the correct reading.
Right.
I think a lot of it has to do with using it and practicing it. And I do hear the board's concerned about low. I would prefer consulting with a medical expert with regard to what reading we should take a lower one, because I know people clock in at all different readings with regard to their normal temperature. If the board would like me to do that, I'll certainly do that. I don't know if I just want to pick out 90 or 90.
No,
I think
It just needs to be some kind of
That
normal.
room for error, so wherever that room for error is.
But just for clarification, do we have like a standing temperature device that each student steps in front of?
Yes.
And they need to be within 3 inches of the sensor in order for it to be proper?
Yes, but you didn't see that at Brookhaven.
No,
You saw that at all.
I saw handheld.
Yes.
Why is that?
So I think that when we talk, we should talk about the standing one and the recognition that there's got to be consistency in terms of how close the student is to the sensor. And the use of the handheld is a backup only when the standing device is giving a reading that we have questions about. Is that how it's designed?
That's how it's designed, yes.
Okay.
So
Does that help, Mr.?
Absolutely, but it was explained to me that all the schools had to stand up.
They do.
Why didn't Brookhaven?
I think there were issues with the cables and whatnot that weren't shared, that didn't get to me.
Okay.
So are the handhelds more accurate than the stand-up ones?
Listen, I don't think there's anything as accurate as putting a thermometer under your tongue, right? It's all human error, so if I'm a little further away, I'm not gonna get a good reading. The middle school reported that they noticed the kids with their hair down, they had to get the hair up, because that was given a false reading too. So I think as we move forward and do utilize these things more, we'll learn more. There is a margin of error of anything, right? I think our stand-ups are 0.02% or something. I mean, there is that margin of error. not a significant number that to be concerned about, but you can expect, you can hit two different ones to get a different reading of .02.
Mr. Parker?
One thing I noticed, I thought the opening went well, across the board. But the one thing I did notice was a little concerning was that Frank P. Long, the buses were there and the kids were sitting on the bus for quite a while. And I remember one kid getting off the bus and said, "Oh, thank God." I was surprised that the temperature was okay with him, but yeah, other than that, I was very impressed with everything.
Yeah, that should shorten, so I think the board recalls that we started buses in shifts at the high school, so that affects all the schools that feed off of the high school. So some of the buses did get earlier than normal, and Ms. Costa is working with the bus company with regard to that.
I also noticed that some of the buses, the students weren't evenly placed. Some of the buses, they were more concentrated in the back, leaving the front kind of.
Well, they're loading from the back first.
What was that?
They are loading from
Yeah.
the back first, and family can sit together.
Okay.
So you may have seen that. I noticed that at Frank P. Long as
Okay,
well.
that's what that-
Okay.
Ms. Aruda?
Just to piggyback off of, I was able to attend the high school, the middle school, and Frank P. Long. When it came to, the entrance of the students, it really ran much better than I anticipated. One of the things I want to point out and I want to thank is our responders. They did a phenomenal job. They really were out there helping in every facet possible. Frank P. Long, we had more of our support staff helping. When I picked up at the high school that afternoon, I don't know if they anticipated the amount of drop-offs. So that was a little chaotic, and then with the seniors leaving. But the responders really, because they were really just, they didn't really know what to expect at that point. They really did a phenomenal job just directing traffic. We had buses coming in, we had parents going in, seniors leaving, and they really communicated with each other very, very well. And I'm sure by the end of the week, it's all going to work out. But I was very impressed with how they handled, especially the chaos of the pickup at the high school specifically. They really did a great job with that.
Let's see, Ms. Denise?
No, I also want to echo the comments that have been made that the opening, for what I was able to witness, I was able to witness the high school, the middle school, Frank P. Long, and then separated from the group to go to the elementary school that I'm liaison to, which was Critz. And I agree with Dr. Gianni. The students looked happy, the faculty and staff looked pleased to be there, and the responders were everywhere that they needed to be. So I think it was, with the trying circumstances that we were able to pull that off. I did get some emails from some teachers that still feel like although they got our letter of support, that we are not holding anyone accountable for things that may go wrong this week. They're not sure that letter is going to give them the support they need. I think the demonstration of the unity of the board that was there to welcome them back was to do just that, to say that we have been talking about this reopening plan tirelessly, where we see deficiencies. We've been bringing them to the attention of administration and addressing them the best we can. And I believe that everyone is in agreement that we're not trying to find things that go wrong. We're trying to help you do things that are right. And we are going to be here to support our faculty, staff, administrators, and certainly our students and our parents.
If I could just tag on to what you said,
Thank you.
because we also want to know things that need to be done so everybody can do things better, and that's the process. And we've already talked about some things tonight that the superintendent will be taking care of. He's already taken care of some things that have been brought to his attention between yesterday morning and tonight. That I think will continue. I spent time also with Dr. Gianni and Miss Felice and Mr. Parker. We kind of traveled together to the first schools. And again, I was struck by the excitement that I saw among the kids to come into the building, and a number of them, when we welcomed them back, they'd say things like they were glad to be back. So that was good to hear. Okay, who else? Okay.
So, I was at the high school, the middle school, Frank P. Long, and Kramer Street, and everything really went great. I'll, share the sentiments that us parents that put our kids on the bus and don't know what they're gonna be like getting into that door and that anxiety all day, they were all smiles and happy, and the ones that weren't, which I only saw one at Kramer, the social worker was right there helping him get adjusted and didn't leave his side until he calmed down. But it brought back memories for me, from back in the day. But that anxiety as a parent, and I think that leading up to this day, yesterday, it was the unknown, and that's what everybody's anxiety was. But the teachers and the kids and the staff, they just did amazing and pulled it off. And there was so much more good than bad, and I think that was it. Once you got into it, you were able to just breathe for a second and be like, all right, I got this. And they did exceptional, and anything that was brought up can be addressed. There was nothing that couldn't be. So the parents were great on social media and so supportive of the teachers, and that's what we are. We're that community that support each other and, take everything as it comes. And we're all here for each other, and I'm just so happy to see more positive than negative. Thank you.
Any other trustee comments or reports here? No? Okay. So next,
Yes,
I
moving
think
on
is the next,
to
the update.
The second item, our next item for discussion is the reopening plan. With 2 days into school, I do have one recommendation for revision to the plan as it relates to temperature checks, which I did allude to a little earlier. Right now, students have a first reading of 100 or above will be rechecked using a handheld device before being sent home. That did not happen in one of our schools yesterday, and I would like to clarify and add a third temperature reading before a student is sent home. And I did place in board docs 3 documents. In public is the current document, and in the board section there are 2 documents, both are the same. One simply has the highlighted piece that's changed, and it is on page 13 of the plan. And specifically, it adds actually I'll read the 4 bullets. Those who display such a temperature, 100, will be rechecked using a handheld temperature scanning for a second and third temperature reading. The second and third reading will be taken by a second and third individual using a second and third handheld device. And the second and third readings are both below temperature of 100 degrees. The student will be permitted entry to school. Sounds a little disjointed, but I couldn't figure out a better way to write it to be clearer. And certainly if the board wants to help me with that.
Well, can we add timing in that?
We can if the board does want to add timing. How would I do that? So what are you thinking?
Well, I would say within maybe a 15 or a 20 minute or, 10 minute, whatever the board feels is, time frame. I definitely think that if we're going one temperature, the child's been standing on a hot bus or whatever, we do one and then we do another and then we do another, I don't really think that would be accurate. So I think there needs to be some form of timing within a, certain time frame, 10 minutes.
They should be back to back, shouldn't they?
Well,
No,
what
not
Mr.
necessarily.
Ruda
If the sun's beating on them,
she's saying is
if the sun's
the kid
beating
was
on
in the
them, they
heat.
read high, and then 30
Time
seconds
cool.
later, you're doing it again, you haven't even allowed the body, the pull down.
Well, and I thought this would be an issue you could talk to the school doctor about what's recommended. When you get oddball readings, how long do you wait to redo it?
Good question.
And so in terms of the intent, I think, of what you have here is like, it's great. And, you know, it's a solution to what we were discussing. In terms of the language, if you need some help in editing, for example, if maybe we can do that overnight instead of as we sit here.
Yeah, I'm just.
I don't think that there's anything here that requires board consent. We all have a consensus about how to just straighten out this this temperature taking issue that's been started to be addressed. So thank you for doing that.
I'm sorry, since we're on this document, can I just make something that I noticed the other day? When you clarified for me on here with the red with the mask breaks and the what masks were acceptable, I noticed, and I didn't notice it the other day when I emailed you, that it had, in addition to classroom mask breaks, it said, when students appropriately socially distanced, teachers will provide 5-minute mask breaks during their class period and for every 40 to 45-minute instructional period at a minimum. But I don't remember it being a requirement that it had to be during a class period. I don't even remember that actually being discussed, so I was wondering why that was even added.
Yeah, it was specifically added in there because we had feedback from teachers that now that we moved the minutes to 39 minutes, they weren't giving any mask breaks. So I put the language in the class period.
So is that making it a requirement though, by adding that? Because I don't know.
Yeah, it's required to give a mask break every period, yes. That's the way this is intended to read.
Okay, so.
So teachers must give one mask break in a class period.
All right.
Do you remember what page that's?
Yes, it's on, it's under E on page, hold on, where's my numbers? 16.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just realized I don't have a resolution here, but I would want the board to act on the revision, at least for now, because it is providing clarity to it, and it has a lot more teeth in it when the board.
All right, well, I would suggest we do that, and then,
And then I'll look.
and then when you're just doing a grammar check, it'll be a routine.
Yeah,
thing.
if you have a grammar check that doesn't change the meaning or contents, I think we can agree that we can do that.
Well, I think the substance, I'm just looking around the board table, and I think everybody supports what it is you're trying to accomplish there.
And I will also confer with the doctor about how long to wait.
Is your hand up for a
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Trim.
Were the staff trained, well, all of the staff trained how to use those standout machines?
Where is staff training with
The
the ones
nurses
that
did
use it?
training, I don't know specifically to who, and I know it's set up for the responders for, I believe, Wednesday, they're going building to building. So I can't give
Well,
you
some trainings
specifics.
were, I'm not sure.
And responders will be trained Wednesday?
Yeah.
All right, so do you want,
So, I'm sorry, I'm just want to be clear that this is, by understanding of this is 3 different thermometer checks, a different individual and a different device each time?
Yes.
Is it,
Your
Royal
language is.
Uh-oh.
All right, so I'm pretty sure Mr. Sheen saying, do not do anything until we fix this language.
Is it not clear?
No, that's my understanding of the intent. I just
Yeah.
wanna
now, is that
understand
gonna
that
be
that's.
feasible?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think it's basically, if the
Yeah,
first one is
absolutely.
100 and the second one's 96, you just need the third one to
Yeah.
try to get somewhere under 100. But if they really believe the first one, like if it's a 96, then you don't have to do another one.
So I'm a little confused now. I'm a student, you know, I do the thing beforehand, I'm 102. Then what would happen?
So you will be retested with a handheld by another individual,
Okay,
and then right after that, retested with another handheld by a different individual.
okay.
So they-
And what's in question is the time period.
So what's in question is the time period. I think for now, I will tell folks to, wait 10 minutes. You gotta let, if it's a hot thing, we gotta let the person cool off,
I
right?
would have a physician look at that.
Yeah, but we are gonna get the
Because
advice
you have
of
the
our
issue
medical
of
doctor.
time
Exposed,
10 minutes
and
for exposure.
that's why I didn't say it the
Versus
first I
the-
started coming down, yeah.
versus
So I'll get, well, tomorrow's not gonna happen, but I will get the advice of medical opinion, and then I will direct the staff to use that until we come to the board.
So now you're looking for the three temperature check, you're looking for something that is not over the recommendation of the physician?
It's gotta be under 100, the second and third one, have to
Okay.
be under.
So if you have one out of the 2 second readings is over 100, you're going with the 100?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Two,
yes,
right?
that would
200?
confirm the 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
Gotcha. And also, if it's too low on the first reading?
Well, we'll get the medical opinion of what that means. I don't know, we're not like kids in it.
It sounds more like
Well,
a
I mean,
a
No,
technology
it just,
failure.
yeah, it just means the reading wasn't accurate.
Mhm.
If it's, considered legally dead while on the reading.
Okay,
All right,
so
moving on.
I'll ask the board to approve the
The
revisions
change.
to the plan as written.
All right, is there a motion to approve the revisions to the reopening plan as shown on page 13 of the plan?
Yes.
And that was the only thing, right?
That was the only thing.
Okay. Do I have a motion from somebody?
I'll make them.
Okay, Ms. Aruda, I'm sorry, Ms. Ancona made the motion. A second by Ms. Aruda. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 6 in favor, the motion passes with Ms. Felice absent during the vote.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, the return to interscholastic athletics. As the board is aware, currently interscholastic athletics is scheduled to start September 21st.
May I interrupt you?
Sure.
I'm sorry, only because there's an update to this. As of an hour ago, New York
Oh.
State Public High School Athletic Association has just moved football, volleyball, and cheer to March 1st. No practice, no competition, no nothing. So-
Everything else on the 21st?
Everything else can still start practice on the 21st, but the high-risk sports, football, volleyball, and cheer, have been moved to March 1st, right? That body has authority over Section 11, correct?
They have the authority to move it, but Section 11 can choose not to participate.
But Section 11 can Section 11 say we're still going the 21st with the high risk?
They could do that, but they wouldn't be
They-
involved in any championships.
Well, then they already canceled the championships.
Yeah, true.
So,
So they
so that's, I guess, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought
No,
they
no.
overruled Section 11, and that just came out about an hour ago.
Well, let me get through this because section's meeting soon with regard to the whole thing too. So included with Mr. Pacini's update from the state, there are some restrictions for low, high, and medium risk sports. We did briefly discuss this at our last meeting and asked to put it on the agenda, which obviously I did. And I also included that 41-page document that we got from the state, actually the state athletic office, not the state education department, which quite frankly is really provides reminders and suggestions based on interim guidance. And it's really ambiguous when you read it. It's not very helpful. I spoke with Mr. McIntyre, our athletic director, and he indicated that the Suffolk County ADs are actually meeting tomorrow morning to discuss this issue, and obviously there'll be some more things to discuss as a result of the state. The executive board of Section 11 had already met and is not in favor of starting on September 21st and prefers waiting to January. The Section 11 Safety Committee met and is in favor by a split vote to start September 21st, and Section 11's Athletic Council, who is the governing board of athletics in Suffolk County, is scheduled to meet Friday at 9 to vote on the issue. So I think hopefully some closure will come to it on Friday. Generally, the executive board makes the recommendation to the council on the vote, and the executive board is not voting. The ADs, I'm told, are split on it. It brings, listen, there's a lot of issues behind the whole thing with regard to transportation, for remote learners, transportation to games, social distancing on the bus, locker room use, 2 spectators per player, having to govern the social distancing rules in the audience. So it would be a challenge to implement. So having said that, does the board want to talk?
I would
Well,
like to say
basically, we'll know more in 2 weeks than we do today.
We'll know more Friday.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. So can you just go ahead with it, or do you need some kind of resolution from the board? Because if they say go ahead and open, I would like these kids to get back on the field. So, do you need anything from us if they agree this
No,
week?
the only, listen, obviously, I would need to know that the board is interested in doing that. In my opinion, I mean, I don't see how you cannot do it if everybody's doing it.
Right.
But also, at the same token, I'm a little concerned, you know, we're opening up school with all these restrictions, and then we're letting kids bang heads on the field. You know, it just kind of doesn't make sense to me. Personally, I'd rather wait till January. That's my personal opinion.
So if you make that,
However, if the county's doing it, I don't see how you can't do it. We're just
Right.
gonna have to figure it out, just like we had to figure out opening up school.
it seems, since we're meeting again in 2 weeks, and they're saying maybe September 1 for some of the non-contact sports.
September 20th.
21st.
I'm sorry, the 21st.
Which is before our meeting, and
Yeah, but that's 2 days before the meeting.
Yeah, but there's no action. I mean, I don't know, maybe we should just kind of pull the board to see where they are with moving forward. Because I could hold off practices 2 days, but I think that would be a detriment.
And it's a safety issue because they've already
Yeah.
eliminated the number of practices before you can compete, which was a safety measure.
Mhm.
So delaying it even another 2 days puts kids at risk. That's why I think kids need to play. And even the decision for football, volleyball, and cheer, I don't see how they're any more high contact than
What'd you say that was, March?
March 1st. I don't see how that's
gonna-
any,
that-
and that's gonna disrupt every season for the
Lacrosse.
remainder of the year. It's gonna,
and plays all
Two sport
three.
people
so
there.
football players that play lacrosse and the volleyball players that play lacrosse, and the fact that, you know, there's just as much contact in soccer as any one of those 3 sports, it's kind of baffling to me that this is what they decided to do. And it seems to me that there's, you know, I get why they chose volleyball and cheerleading, probably because they're the only fall, you know, indoor sports. Everything else is outdoors. And football, I guess the crowds and everything else that you have to put in place because they draw the biggest crowds for a game probably. I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't know.
it seems like some people just didn't want to, at the state level, just didn't want to deal with
Is
it.
that from practice too, Chris?
Everything, nothing for high risk can start until March 1st. At the state level, like Dr. Gianni said, Section 11 could just say, we're going forward, but there wouldn't be championships. But there isn't for football, and I think the governor canceled all championships outside your region. Right?
Yeah.
Nassau and Suffolk are considered a region, but at this point, I think kids would probably, I'm assuming, would rather play and have a county championship opportunity over nothing, or an abbreviated season. Because there's kids, I mean, I don't know, it's just, I feel bad for these kids who are playing for an opportunity to showcase themselves for colleges. There's still sometimes it's late for spring, fall sports, but there's still opportunities, so some of these kids have been working all summer, it's a shame, it really is.
The fact that he's letting intramural sports go on and not school, what is the difference? If you're doing PAL, whatever, it's the same risk that you have in,
The fact that the fields are filled with soccer players and lacrosse
Yeah,
players
I
and
mean,
travel leagues and there's
even
tournaments all
football,
over the country
little
right now and
pee-wee.
everything else.
So I'm
Yeah,
for it.
listen, I hear all those things. To me, though, you know, we do our best to cohort children, to keep people apart, and then you let them go bang heads with another school.
Right.
No,
My point is they're doing it already.
Yeah,
Outside of
I
school,
know.
that's my
I
point,
hear
and that's
you.
the part that I think is just kind of silly, and a lot of these kids, like soccer specifically, they're traveling the East Coast playing in tournaments. So they're leaving the state and coming back. So, I mean, if it's safe for soccer, how is football's not traveling the country playing tournaments? It doesn't really happen. So, my problem with it all is that none of it just makes any sense. I get what you're saying, and it seems to me that, and I get it's just one more undertaking on top of an already stressed system. Trying to educate kids, adding athletics is difficult, I get it. But splitting a season, sports within a season, really just, I mean, in my opinion, hurt kids more than it should have, because unless they're gonna abbreviate winter and spring sports to fit them in there, which maybe that's a part of the plan as well, it seems like they should have just said, moved everybody to January, but I don't wanna do that to those kids
Part of
either.
the plan, but it's overlapping, so even though they're abbreviating it, a kid that plays football cannot do lacrosse the way they have it.
Only if you're in a championship or at the end of it. I mean, that happens all the time anyway, right? If you go deep in the playoffs in football and you're a basketball player, you play to Thanksgiving. And basketball starts 2 weeks early, so that happens. So I get your point, but it's few and far
Under
between.
this new proposal, there won't be anything.
And there won't be anything
Right.
outside the
Now
county
they won't
anyway,
Right.
so.
That's why I like the January. I know it's short for everybody, but everybody, you know.
At least all seasons can compete in
Yeah.
their respective times, it doesn't interfere. That was why I thought they would have went. And you know what? By the 21st, that still may happen.
Yeah, it could.
And also, having the rolling reopenings, like we're doing now, the hybrid learning and all of that, I would think that the state and the health department would want us to have some amount of time to see how that goes
You would think.
before we add another layer on it. Otherwise, how can you test for it?
Well, I would think that the September 21st start date originally for fall sports had to do with, all right, we've got a couple weeks of school. If numbers gonna spike, they're gonna spike early, right? College campuses where numbers are spiking, it's spiking within a week. It's not waiting 2 weeks, so we're gonna know a lot. And by the end of next week, we're gonna know a lot about public schools and whether or not the spike, if there's really gonna be a spike, right? So, I would think they would have held off and maybe they can reverse course, because it looks like NASA's trying to reverse course on their action. That's what-
NASA's trying to delay.
NASA athletic directors delayed everything until January. And then now they said they'll consider it, they'll reconsider at a certain point, I think, which is coming up probably the next week, to say maybe we'll go back to the original plan of starting September 21st. But I believe the governing bodies are managed a little differently in Nassau and Suffolk. So that's why that happened. The superintendents have more say in Nassau than they do in Suffolk. So,
To clarify, are we having a vote here? Okay, so we were just having a discussion.
We're having a discussion,
Okay.
but, so the board knows, my plan is to move forward on September 21st, because I believe that if it's offered, I don't know how we can't do it. It'll be a challenge, but it'll be one of those things we have to figure out. You know, and as we figure it out, I will let the board know what's happening. Okay?
Right, thank you.
Okay, and more to follow. I don't know if I'll be able to put anything in the update tomorrow, other than, some
That's
feedback
okay.
from the ADs, but Friday morning, if something earth-shattering comes out, I'll send it out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so the next item is item 4, and that is the discussion appointment of a trustee to the Town of Brookhaven Landfill Committee, and I offer this for the board's discussion and action.
So actually, I think the two trustees who probably have the most knowledge about it are Mr. Parker and Ms. Felice, because Mr. Parker has been named by the town to be a member of this committee. And the reason to have it on our agenda would be to have Mr. Parker be designated as the representative for the board to participate in the committee and to report back to us, and also to express any decisions or any feelings that the board has about landfill issues. Do you want to add to that, Mr.?
Well, to that point, I'll make the motion to appoint Mr. Klein, and then we can discuss.
Okay.
So motion to appoint Mr. Clyde Parker to the Brookhaven Town as the Brookhaven Town representative from the South Country Central School District for the Solid Waste Solutions Committee.
All right, and we need a second for that. Mr. Trent seconded. Questions or discussions? All in favor? There's, let's see.
Well, I have a discussion.
Oh.
I just want to clarify that Mr. Parker's okay with us making this decision.
Yeah.
Can I just ask
I just wanted to be
how he
clear.
was appointed?
The town, it was through the,
I'm sorry?
It's like, how did you get appointed? Did you express interest or?
No,
Did
I
they
was
approach
approached
you?
by the town. I've been very active with the landfill for the last 3 or 4 years. And I guess it was a surprise to me because it's no secret that I, in most cases, oppose the landfill in its present form. And so when I was approached and asked, I thought, well, the only way I'll know what's going on is to be at the table.
So you'll be bringing our concerns and our neighbors' concerns to this committee?
You know, I'm not sure I understood exactly what you said.
So we're gonna discuss it here and you're gonna bring our concerns to them? Is that what this is, your liaison from us to them?
No. Basically, well, once I find out when a meeting is in place, you know, obviously we'll discuss what it is that you guys would like me to present to this committee. Certainly, but I'll need to know exactly. Well, I do know who's going to be on the committee, but there's a lot that I'll have to find out once we're there, and I won't know that until we have a first meeting.
Okay.
so we have a motion and a
I'll
second.
just make a note, yes, you have a motion in a second. I'll just add to the discussion that, you know, only on August 19th, I read the first article that this plan was being proposed, and so I recommended to the board that we be, you know, forewarned as being forearmed, and to watch out for since our district and certainly, you know, schools are right in the line of the landfill, and we know what we went through before. And then within 2 weeks' time, a committee has been formed. So apparently, the town is planning on moving faster than was originally thought, which is why we're forewarned. So there are 2 groups out there that Mr. Clyde is aware of that are really taking the oversight of the landfill as their primary issue, and one is the Bellport Coalition, and the other is the Brookhaven Solid Waste Management Residue Facility Committee. So there is a group of people that are from our neighbors from the area surrounding the landfill. They have identified that the committee members that have been appointed, and they plan on getting in touch with all of you so that their concerns are heard as well. And the Bellport Coalition is going to be making a request to expand the committee to include more people who have been involved, like yourself, with the landfill issues from the beginning. So just to let you know that those are some of the discussions that have been going on out there. I did sit in on those 2 meetings, and I'll sit in on them as time permits. From time to time, I bring those issues back.
Absolutely.
But certainly, I think it's appropriate that if the town invited you to be on the committee and they did identify you as being a representative from the board, that the board recognize you to act on our behalf. And that's why I support the motion.
And I'll add to that I think having eyes and ears at the table, particularly when it comes to finances, because I have a feeling that it may be one more example of our area getting dumped on, bad pun intended, and tax money being pulled away from what would otherwise be available for our schools. And, you know, I'm glad to have somebody who can keep an eye on what's going on to report back to us, so we know what's happening and whether there's anything that we may need to do, you know, on a board basis. So we've had the motion, we had a second.
The President makes an important point, because there is a case of environmental injustice. And I think that needs to be put on the table right off, you know, from the onset.
Well, I've worked with, well, I know you know Adrian Esposito. I've worked with her quite closely for at least 4 or 5 years now. And so she and I.
You're a good man for the job,
Yeah, yeah, so.
And
And she
Mr.
is on the committee as well.
yes, but I noticed that.
Well, I just wanted to thank Cheryl for bringing us these updates and keeping us in the loop, you know, because this is how I kind of found out about the things that were going on with the landfill. So I just wanted to thank you, Cheryl, for that and keeping us all in the loop. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Mr. Parker, for adding something else to your plate to help us and the rest of the community here. All right, we're ready to vote. All in favor? It's, you get to vote for
No, I
yourself.
can vote. Oh, okay.
It's unanimous. So thank you for that.
And our last item for discussion is a statement on behalf of the board regarding a community incident. Turn it over to President Hayes.
Okay. From people who've read in the paper or on social media, they're aware of the display of a Confederate flag on a fire truck out of the Brookhaven Fire Department. And there were a couple of members of the board who expressed interest in drafting a statement, and I want to thank Ms. Felice and Ms. Ancona for drafting a statement. It's focused on recognizing that the commissioners and the chiefs of the fire department took quick action with regard to the individuals who had displayed the Confederate flag, and also it's recognizing the efforts of the NAACP and some of our elected officials to have anti-bias training and afforded to not just this fire department, but pretty much across the board. But there was a feeling that it would be important for the school district to make a statement, and it's along the lines of what we've been doing in terms of our goals and priorities, which is to speak out about any systemic racist or like you mentioned, the economic disparity of adverse things like landfills in our area. And to use this as, it was called a teachable moment, and I think that the statement that the two of you have drafted for our review sums that up. So that's why this is being presented for discussion by the board, and if the board approves, it will then be released for, where did you think you would publish this?
We discussed the advance on our website to show the community, you know, how we feel in our statement against it. Well, for their actions. Originally, you know, this changed in the last 2 weeks of how this was going to go. So, and Cheryl and I discussed it, and you know, the approach was totally different after the actions, and luckily, you know, it was fast. So this actually came out. This was a much better letter that we drafted than we originally intended, and this makes me happier than what we originally intended.
So I'm glad to see it too, again, because it's putting the focus back on what we do as providing public education, and this is part of it. So, Mr. Trent.
I wanted to say that the last sentence in the statement really, you know, really struck me when it talks about pledging to be an instrument for lasting change against systemic racism and intolerance. And I just wanted to add, I want to make the suggestion to add social injustice into that bottom line, and then I believe that it would really be complete. Also, I wanted to suggest that the board, start thinking about how do we actually fulfill that promise. And then I would think a good way to start would be to have some form of retreat focused on just that last sentence, to talk about, how we could fulfill that promise against systemic racism and intolerance and social injustice. So I just wanted to make those two suggestions.
Okay. I think those are good suggestions.
Yes.
Can we separate out your retreat issue?
Absolutely.
And just say with the addition of social injustice in the last sentence, are we ready for the board to?
If I could just make another, just one more
Okay.
comment. Yes, nobody else had anything?
Yes, go ahead.
Absolutely, we have to talk about how we implement our pledge. And like Gina said, this draft came out so much better than, our first draft was about anger and just, outrage. And I think we owe it to the Brookhaven Fire Department to let them know we are releasing this statement, so they're not blindsided, and that we can begin to bridge that gap. And encourage them to recruit from our seniors. You have to be 18 years old to volunteer for the fire department. And let's encourage them to maybe come in and do some talks with our students about volunteering for the fire services or any of the volunteer services.
Absolutely.
And all of the districts that are in our, all of the fire services, emergency services that are in our school district. We should encourage them all to come in. I don't know if they come in on career day. If they don't, then maybe that's a good start.
And I think in the past, there've been similar kinds of things that have been done through the clubs or after school. I don't know how that could be handled in this
Well,
distance, but I would think we could at least get the word out, and maybe they could do some kind of Zoom meeting with interested students.
when I was in high school, the military set up a table in the cafeteria, and they had, pull-up bars and, knickknacks and things just, as an opportunity to introduce themselves to the students there. So I think something like that, if possible, would be a good idea as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting a little off, and I'm just trying to make sure we don't lose track. Are we all in agreement that this statement with the additional language of social injustice in the last sentence would be, it's a statement that we all can stand behind and have it released for publication? Are we ready to do that? Okay. And there are other sources to get it out too, and I think your idea of letting the fire department, I think maybe have the two of you be sort of liaisons to let them know, but also Bellport.com is, he'll upload that overnight if you get it to him. So,
Well, you would have, the district would have to type it up on the letterhead, yes?
well, not for Bellport, I don't know.
I mean, I would think
It would
that-
look a lot better.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
to look better.
Let it go out on official letterhead,
Okay.
and then we can
So we can
certainly.
do that and do that tomorrow. Okay. So,
And you'll sign it on behalf of the board, or
well,
the
actually,
trustees will
if,
sign it? or
I would like
we
to
were
sign
gonna
it.
have
I would like to
all
sign it
names.
too.
We were gonna just do it, South Country Central School, Board of Education, South Country Central School District, and then list all names.
The names are on the letterhead though, right?
Yep.
If
So
they're
what
on the
would-
letterhead, we don't.
Goes out on
have to.
letterhead, I
Okay.
personally believe it just should be signed Board of
I'm only
Education.
I was only following the pattern of the last.
I know, but that didn't go on letterhead, because that was just an internal email to the
Oh, I
staff.
see. Okay.
So, you've raised a good point there. So, yeah, if it gets typed, if it could be typed on letterhead tomorrow, call me, I'll come in and sign it.
I'll come too. Are we gonna all sign it, or
I
just Dan?
don't, no,
We need to sign
normally
it.
Okay.
it would just say Board of Education by,
Okay,
and then
Okay.
my name and I'll sign it. Is that okay with everybody? All right, all in favor of doing this? We have unanimous approval. So I think, Christine, that's to put on your plate for something to do? Or does Sarah,
It's Christina.
Christine will do it? Okay. Thank you.
So there's no motion.
There was.
There was a motion.
No, I don't think we did a
I think there was.
motion. No. I'll make the motion.
Well, no, sure, we had the motion in a second. All of this was discussion. All
I
right.
thought
I thought Cameron made the,
we made a motion
I
and we
could have
seconded it.
sworn, yeah, and then you
No,
said.
I didn't make the motion.
Okay, all right.
back to the
You can
tape.
tell, it's getting
I don't think
late.
I did. Oh.
Okay, so.
There's no discussion after somebody makes the motion.
No.
That's all I have to say.
Who's going, is there a motion to approve the statement that's been presented to us for publication by the board? Have Ms. Ms. Ancona and a second by Ms.
All right.
Aruda. And all the discussion that was previously had is now incorporated here. And all in favor, it's unanimous.
You know,
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes.
I just do want to, I had a long discussion with the captain of the fire department on this matter, on the day of the protest. I don't know, I guess there was about 30 people there. And so he admitted that a mistake was made, not by the fire department, but this was an individual who perpetrated this nonsense. And I like the way they took action afterwards. So I think they were deeply saddened by this event. And I'm happy that they did react as fast as they did. Could have reacted sooner, obviously, but after the discussion, it was clear that, and the next day was in the papers, the Advance and I think Newsweek or whatever. So they obviously were very, very much wanted to get this out of the press. And so I think it was a good job, but I think this letter that would come from the board, I think would be fabulous as well, because we are part of the community, as is the fire department. And I think we should let people know how we feel about this. So I'm 100% in favor of this letter going
Okay.
out.
Thank you for that. So I think next, we have the consent agenda for curriculum.
Okay, yes, we do. So administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in schedules G1 and G2.
Is there a motion to approve items G1 and G2? Ms. Felice, and a second by Ms. Aruda. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, it's unanimous.
Okay, and moving to personnel. Administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in H1 through H3 and H5 through H9. And if you did not refresh, which I did not do, H9 was not added to your agenda. H9 is the item we discussed in
Right.
executive session.
Right. Okay,
And I will come back to H4.
okay. So just repeat your numbers, please.
Yes, H1 through H3 and H5 through H9.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve items H1 through H3 and items H5 through H9? Ms. Felice, the motion, Mr. Trent seconded. Questions, discussions?
No, I'm seconding it.
Okay, all in favor? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you.
And administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in H41 through H412 and H414 through H4.
Sorry, never mind, no, you got it right, I'm sorry.
H425 and H427 through H492. So I have recommended approval of all items except for H413 and H426.
Okay, that's how we're gonna do the motion. I need a motion to approve all items in,
H4.
except for, all items that are set forth in H4, except for H413 and H426.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Pacini made the motion, Mr. Parker seconded. Questions, discussion, all in favor? That's unanimous.
And administration recommends approval for items reflected in H413 and H426.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Pacini, and a second for that. Ms. Felice? Questions or discussion? All in favor? There's six, okay, 6 in favor, and all opposed? 1 opposed. So that approval is granted.
And moving on to business items, administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-1 through I-17.
Is there a motion to approve business items I-1 through I-17? Ms. Aruda, Ms. Ancona, and who's your hand up?
Yeah, I'll
The
second.
Ms. Aruda, okay. Questions or discussion? All in favor? All in favor, Ms.?
I'm sorry.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's unanimously approved.
I have a question.
Okay?
The donors choose items that are given to the teacher. Can you speak a little about that? Because I don't know like what that is. Is it a non-for-profit donors choose, or is it a?
I believe it is a non-for-profit. The way it works is teachers put items that they would like folks to donate to on their website, and then folks donate to that item, and then they in turn subsequently give the district the money to purchase those items. And I'm sure Donors Choose get some cut of it somehow along the way.
So our teachers put up something that they want donors to donate to,
Yeah.
and the donors can donate. And this is donorschoose.com.
Without work.
Oh.
It's great.
Did I describe that kind of?
Yes.
Yeah, basically, you choose whatever it is that you would like to have purchased for your classroom or for your students. And then you give the reason why you want it, and then oftentimes, if there are certain things, corporations will donate to it. Throughout the year, there's certain times where they run promotions, so to speak, where, Donors Choose will match, your donations, whether it be family, friends, or just random strangers, that will donate to the project. I think you have, it's like 90 days, I believe, don't quote me on the dates, for your project to be basically fulfilled. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't. It really depends.
Do we know if a good number of our teachers utilize that, or?
Oh, yeah.
They do?
Yeah.
Yeah, usually repeat folks do it.
I think there was
Never knew.
one.
A lot from Frank P. Law.
Yeah.
I know that last year when Jack Nix made the announcements, there seemed to be an awful lot of teachers whose names kept coming up. So they were very they found it very useful in order to fund special projects in their classroom.
Absolutely. And you know when to go in and when, you know, when they're gonna run their promotions and things like that. What kinds of things will really get, the full amount?
Okay. I think we're ready now. We don't have any more comments that were sent in from the public on,
Oh, I don't think you voted.
Oh, we didn't?
do business yet.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. So now, I think we have the motion to approve items I1 through I-17. So all in favor?
Do we have a motion?
Wait, we
never had a motion.
There was a motion.
We have the motion.
Yeah.
We have the motion.
Yeah, it was all motion and second, and then Cameron said, I have a question.
Okay.
After we made the
There you
vote.
go.
We voted already.
We voted, that was after.
I don't think we voted.
We did, right there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving right along.
Okay, that's why
Never
we have
mind.
Christine Lynn attending our meetings. Here we go. All right, so back to where I thought we were. Do we have any public commentary on
No.
non-agenda
No, we
items?
did it.
Nothing came through your office?
No, we just took it all.
We already did that, okay. Closing remarks by board members. Ms. Aruda.
Closing remarks and questions. Dr. Gianni, I know that we talked about hotspots. Could you just speak a little bit about hotspots and have they come out? Do we have more so that the public, I know it's been a little bit.
Yeah, we have some 200 hotspots that I think recently got reconfigured or configured to go, and they've been distributed. And
They're in the buildings.
They're in the buildings, so the principals will begin
Okay, so the
distributing.
principals have a list of names and.
Well, listen, we know some folks from last year, which we earmarked, and then the rest we're gonna, hopefully, people are gonna come forward. And I think we'll recognize who those are simply by being unconnected, right?
Right.
It's a little different than last year.
And I only ask because during our meetings, I did actually meet a couple of new students that are brand new to our district. So I just wanted to know exactly, you know, where they're going, just so that we have an idea. Second was the video, the ENL video posted on the website. I wasn't able to find that.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me, I do apologize if I'm gonna be sending.
You know,
an email.
yeah,
That will
you know,
last-
if we can,
yeah.
and maybe thinking, you know, moving forward, you know, we used to do our parent universities and, you know, if we could have some type of tech parent university, especially for our ENL population, it has been brought to my attention, from some ENL families, some Spanish-speaking families, that they are still really feeling out of the loop. So it's something on our part needs to kind of kick up so that we know that we're connecting with them. So it
Do you
has
remember
been,
the date of the ENL meeting?
I do, it was last Monday. I will tell you the date right
That's all
now.
right, I could figure that out.
And are they using parent portal, or is
Well-
that the part of the problem?
Part of the
Last
part of
Monday.
the meeting was teaching them how to do parent portal. Many of them are not realizing that you can change over the website to the language, on top of making sure that they're even able to go through all of the information. So I just think, just in general, whether you're Spanish speaking or English speaking, having these universities might really be helpful to anybody, especially reaching out to our Spanish-speaking community. And I know that we've talked a little bit about it, but I'm gonna keep pressing that issue, sorry.
Okay. I was gonna go around the
Oh, go ahead, go.
table because otherwise
Yeah, go ahead.
we're gonna end up distracted about what motion is pending. There's no motion pending. These are closing remarks. So, Mr. Parker? None?
Nothing for me.
None? Okay, Mr. Trent?
I do. I just have a couple questions. I wanted to know if it's possible for the board to receive kind of like an attendance report. I just to make sure that, you know, we're keeping an eye on the students who are not showing up, whether it be online or in person. And also, I wanted to know, is there a way that the board can be notified, I guess in an update or something, if students are sent home because of their temperature being too high? I just wanted to make sure that the board is kept in the loop with those two things, attendance and temperature.
So I'll defer to council about me providing attendance reports.
So
Well,
are,
we
think I
don't need
do-
to know the
yeah.
names of the
No,
students.
just the number,
Just
you
the
know,
number.
just,
Just
so
number?
if the board wants to receive specific reports from the superintendent, it's my recommendation that that be set forth, either a resolution in terms of a clear direction as to what the board expects to receive and on what basis the board would be receiving it. I know that the board can receive statistics, and I think that's what you're looking for, just like statistics, not specific names. So the board can certainly receive that information. It would just be my recommendation that if you're going to request specific information and reports that are ongoing, that there be some resolution that gives administration the exact information you're looking for and on what basis administration will be providing the board with that information.
so I have to be a little more detailed.
Yeah, that's my suggestion, just so the board's expectations are clear to administration as to what you're expecting them to provide and on what basis, on what timeframe.
So why don't we, maybe you could give a few minutes thought to how most efficiently to do that. And we could talk about drafting the resolution and then bring that back to the board for next time. Would that?
Yeah, that's fine.
What would the purpose of I missed the beginning of it.
Just so we're kept in the loop, how we get the report of the students who go to ISS or suspended, or the reports how we get, you know, how many students go to the nurse and what for, just so we're kept in the loop.
Okay, all right. Ms. Ancona?
Yes, so Dr. Gianni, I wanted to ask if it was possible for the EPs in the secondary level to post announcements in the kids' grade level Google Classrooms, because some of them won't be in the school to hear them. Not that there's too many right now, but just so all the kids know what's going on throughout the day, you know, the morning announcements, if they can be posted. I know they get posted to the website, but the kids don't like to navigate the website too much. It just.
I don't know, you know, what that would take. I mean, I could look into that.
Yeah, just for, like,
My
communication.
suggestion would be to have kids go to the website.
I know, but you know kids, they're not gonna look, if it's not in front of them, they forget. So if there was a Zoom
I
club
think,
meeting, they all know about it, stuff like that.
Not being expert skilled in Google Classroom, I do know it would require the teachers to post that.
Well, the APs have their own, so that's why I said maybe in their grade level, like the secretary could post it in the
If there was
morning.
something specific to a club though, wouldn't they have their own, do the clubs, are they planning on having their own Google Classroom per club?
Well, in the beginning of the school year especially, they don't even know what they're joining yet and stuff.
No, I know, I just know in the high school, I've seen just from my own son that there are announcements, if anything important is being posted by the APs already. So I'm just trying to understand
I'm talking
what
about
the
the morning
difference, I'm just trying to understand what the
announcements.
difference is.
So the morning announcements, if there's, whatever they say in the morning, isn't there announcements every morning with the pledge? You know, it's already typed up and posted on our website, can they just throw it into the Google Classroom?
You're looking to post the morning announcements where?
In their class, like they have a class of 2023 Google Classroom, like the 9th grade Google Classroom.
So the
their
grade
10th
level Google Classroom?
Yeah, so, just so they get some kind of idea, because they're not gonna always be in school to hear those announcements in the morning. The other thing I wanted to ask is if we can have somebody in the middle school post the secondary FAQ onto, well, actually send out an email to the middle school parents, because they didn't receive that, and Mr. Hogan sent it to the high school parents via email. And that had a lot of things that we did not know. It was the frequently asked questions for the secondary schools. So there was a lot of good information on there. And then I thought this was gonna be on the agenda, and I guess it's not, but did we decide we were doing with driver's ed with the new guidelines?
That was sent to the high school, and I'm not certain how
Nothing
we're
with the
handling that
parents.
yet. What?
Nothing with the parents on it?
Yeah, well, because I don't know where we're going with it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that-
Just to
I'm
piggyback off
aware
of-
of it.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm aware of the new regs, but the administration's still working on that.
Okay.
the email about, that's what I thought, just this morning, the middle school email went out with the FAQs.
Oh, okay, thank
Just this
you.
morning, all of a sudden, as you're saying it, I'm like, like I
Okay.
think, literally went out this morning.
Thank you.
Crossing that off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
And then, just because our next meeting is around this time, have we decided what we're doing with Meet the Teacher Nights? Are they gonna be on Zoom and stuff
With
like?
the who, what?
Meet the Teacher Nights?
Yeah, we're doing virtual, everything's virtual right now. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody will be on a Zoom, the
Everything right now is
teachers.
still virtual, sure.
And do we foresee that being that many teachers and parents online, like crashing and stuff? Like, I'm just wondering, tech issues, are they gonna be allowed to do from their home and
Who, the
the
parents?
teachers
No,
and
the
then
teachers will come to work.
they're gonna come in?
Oh, sure,
Okay.
that's when they generally would do, that's
Yeah.
where they would do back to school night.
Okay, so I was just thinking with all those people at once, it might crash, but,
Oh, that'll be our big test.
all right. And that's all. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Ms. Felice?
Yeah, I just want to mention the New York State School Board Association, the training that we all are required to go through, has a convention each year. And not many of us have been able to avail ourselves to it because it involves travel and lodging and being away from home and work. This year, it is also going to be virtual. So I went through the agenda, many of the topics are going to be COVID related. So I would encourage anyone who has the time to do it. I would like to avail myself to it and would ask that it get put on the next agenda for approval. I think there's a lot of information we can enjoy from it and share. And also just to let the board know that the government relations, the State Board Association Government Relations team is continuing to meet with our representatives, encouraging funding and getting federal funding restored back to the state so that we don't have to deal with cuts from Albany, and that is still a work in progress. And there'll be more information coming out next time. I'll have a more detailed report for everybody. And finally, I just want to conclude with, because things aren't as they were, normally we would have our middle school students participating in the 9/11 memorial at Belport Docks. And of course, that won't be happening this year. At least I don't think something like that is happening. I don't know if anybody from the music department is going to be at that ceremony, because that ceremony is still going to take place. But I just didn't want this week to pass without remembering those lives that we lost on 9/11, which was, hard to believe, 19 years ago.
Thank you. So, I just wanted to sum up a little bit and to echo a lot of things that have already been said tonight about thank you to the superintendent, to the building administrators, to the teachers, to the responders, to everybody. It looked like everybody was pitching in yesterday to get school reopened. And I'm very happy to hear that of the glitches that were already noted, that the administration was already aware and was already dealing with them. So I hope that people recognize what I see, which is that there's been a lot of thought that's been put into this whole process. And while we all recognize that it's going to be a learning process, we have the confidence in our employees and our staff that they're going to be able to do what needs to be done. And, you know, it'll be more of a learning curve for some than others, particularly with regard to the technology. But I think with everybody's patience and helping each other, we're all going to get through it. And we may be, when we do get through it, we may be surprised at how it's received. And I think back to graduation night, where I've wondered how were the kids going to feel about not getting the graduation like all the prior years. And there were any number who told their parents they loved it. and there were younger students that said they hoped that their graduation ceremony would be just like the one that was done this year. Who would have thought? So it's gonna be an interesting process to see how we get there from here, and then to look back at all we went through, and as long as we all pull together, we're gonna have a great school district, so. Okay, I need the motion to adjourn by Mr. Trent and seconded by Ms. Aruda. All in favor? This one's unanimous. Okay.